Good evening. I'm going to call the Select Board meeting for Monday, October 6, 2025 in order. And we are going to first go into executive session before we begin the public session again. So I'll take a motion to enter that.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we go into executive session for A, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. SEIU 888, Service Employees International Union, Harwich Management Employees Association, HEA, Harwich Employees Association, comma, HMEA, Highways and Maintenance Employees Association, Harwich Permanent Firefighters Association, Massachusetts Coalition of Police, Patrol, and Superior Officers. B, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or specific or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, the open meeting law, Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, 22FG, to review, approve, and/or discuss the possible release of executive session meeting minutes dated September 8, 2025, September 15, 2025, and September 22nd, 2025.
We hear a second. Okay, it's moved and seconded. So again, we'll be back after this, and I'll take a roll call. Pete?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
All right, we'll be back later after the executive session. No sooner than 6:30. Of session at 5:15, and that's pretty much the way it sounded. Off in the corner. And we, amongst other things, the only thing I can report to is that we approved 3 sets of minutes, but only September 8th is going to be released in a limited fashion. And before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to recognize Jeff Handler over a sad moment for the town.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I have stated in the past, here in Harwich, heroes walk among us every day. Last week, Harwich lost a hero. Izzy Thompson, through her Pilgrim Congregational Church, led a team. It's called Izzy's Team, that collected clothes, toiletries, gift cards for the homeless and the hopeless on Cape Cod. Monthly, she would go to Hyannis for her team's giveaway. She also organized her church's overnight hospitality program, where those without a bed would sleep at Church Hall. I could go on, and for those who knew Izzy, you were blessed. And for those who did not get the opportunity to know Izzy, you truly missed out. Izzy is a true example of Harwich's residents who deeply, deeply cared about her community, and is a perfect example of what we all need more of right now. She never looked for fanfare. She always had the biggest smile. She never looked for credit. She just quietly did her work and God's work. So may we take a moment of silence to remember Izzy Thompson. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. She was quite a remarkable woman. All right, so I'd like you all to join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to take the meeting a little bit out of order and recognize Chief Considine for another special moment.
Good evening, Kevin Considine, Police Chief. Truly a special moment. It's my favorite time to get in front of this board for this occasion tonight. and that's asking for your appointment of 2 new student officers who I'll introduce tonight. Before I do that, I want to recognize Sergeant Tyler Vermette, who's in the audience. Tyler is in charge of our interview and hiring and background committee. We have quite a rigorous hiring process at HPD. The first step is to get through this group here on the committee with Tyler and other officers and sergeants before the candidates come up to command staff interviews, which is myself, deputy chief, and 2 lieutenants. Quite a long process, quite a rigorous process, and then it's time to get ready for the police academy, which is in itself a difficult challenge. So it's my pleasure tonight, Sean, you want to come up? To let the board know not only about these 2 fine young men, but where we are with staffing. From me down, we have an authorized strength of 35 police officers. Proud to report tonight, after these 2 are filled tonight, we have 1 remaining. And I haven't said that here, or nobody said that here in 4, 5, 6 years. As you recall, during budget time, we were down 7, 8, 9 at some points, just because of the difficult hiring market that all of us were facing, but particularly public safety. So I'm extremely proud to report that to you tonight, that after this, we have 1, and I've already had that candidate sign a conditional offer this week. So hopefully, early December, she will be in front of you, getting ready for the police academy. So very exciting times for us. The department has completed a hiring process and has produced 2 outstanding officer candidates, student officer candidates. The candidates have completed all the requirements under Massachusetts general law to attend the next session of the 22-week Plymouth Police Academy, which will start on October 20th, 2025. So candidate number 1, Sean Driscoll. Sean grew up on Cape Cod and attended Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School. Sean attended Cape Cod Community College in the criminal justice program, then enlisted in the United States Coast Guard. Sean's station assignments included Oswego, New York, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Cape Cod Canal, and the Atlantic Strike Team McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. Sean's duty in the Coast Guard included law enforcement duties, as well as rescue operations. Sean currently lives in Harwich, not too far from here, with his wife, Keliana, and his son, Grayson, who's with Dad tonight. On a side note, I met Sean at the Habitat for Humanity West Harwich event a good 2 years ago, raising walls at that event while he was in the Coast Guard. And Sean's application and folder have literally been on my desk for probably over 2 years. Sean wanted to be in Harwich. This is really the only place he wanted to be. He lives in town. And pretty much Sean and I spoke and said that application is staying here until you're ready, hoping we would have the openings, and we did. So I can't thank Sean enough for being patient and being here tonight.
Thank you, Chief.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
Jacob. Candidate Jacob Rosado. Jacob grew up in Falmouth and received his bachelor's degree in political science from UMass Lowell and was a student at UMass, a student athlete at UMass. Jacob worked for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, where he was a legal assistant in the Major Felony Bureau, while assisting prosecutors, investigators, and victim witness advocates. Jacob also assisted in the office's homicide response team. When I asked Jacob why he wanted to work here during his interview, which is my #1 question to any candidate, Jacob said he wished to provide services to a community similar to the one he grew up in and wished to work for a department with a commitment to strong community policing. And we're thrilled to have Jacob. So it's my honor to recognize these 2 student officers and ask for your appointment under the consent agenda. Thank you.
I might actually jump the agenda here, but before I do, I just want to make one comment. You're both joining a police force that has, it's a terrific police force, and it has wonderful leadership, and all we ask for in return is that you uphold the highest ideals of the town in return. So with that, since we have a little trainee in the corner who's probably chomping at the bit to come out and go back home, I'll accept a motion to accept the police chief's recommendation under the consent.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the appointment of Sean Driscoll and Jacob Rosado to student officers as easy for me to say, as recommended by Police Chief Considine, effective October 19, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay, now we can applaud.
You do not want to stay. This is your one and only shot to get out. Already went through that. Yeah, good.
Although I might add, if you're having a problem getting him to sleep, this may be the place to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So, wanted to start, before we go too far here, is that we're having some technical difficulties with GoToMeeting, so just bear with us as we try to deal with that. Let's see here, staff comments. I've got a couple, and then we'll open it back up. The one that's listed is the Harwich Hall of Fame, because we do value people. Through the years we've been writing up, as Jeff said, there's a lot of people who are heroes walking amongst us. Just want to remind everybody that technically we really like to get the applications in by November 1st, so I'm giving everybody a heads up to be able to do that. If you want to get a form for it, you can get in touch with the administrative office, and you can do that. And I just love being able to deliver good news, because good stuff does happen here. By the end of the week, this past week, we received two disbursements to the town totaling nearly $1 million of sewer money from the state as buy-downs for the capital borrowing, for the actual principal. So when we tell you that it's important to put in for those fundings and that the state is going to buy down these projects, it's true. And we received the money this past week, so that was really good news. With that, any other staff comments and announcements? All right, and we'll move on to weekly briefing.
So just a couple updates related to the sewer work. I just wanted to bring folks' attention to, there will be no work conducted on Monday, October 13th due to the holiday. They did start working on Route 39 today, so please, follow the detours there. Same for Pleasant Bay Road as that work continues. A couple updates related to Great Sand Lakes. The SRF application was successfully submitted on 10/3. We're currently working on a milestone chart with GHD to basically plan out all the milestones that need to occur between now and next June, when we need to have that contract signed and settled by the end of June. We had our call with S&P 500 last week related to the borrowing of the non-SRF funds, along with a few other things. So now we're waiting to hear back probably in the next week or two as they do their work. Lastly, on the Brooks Academy Museum Library update, we did receive the price proposal. The team is currently reviewing that. There's probably going to be some comments back to the architectural firm that was hired, so we're just going to have to work out any fine details there with that group before we move forward with that project. So that is a weekly update.
Questions for the town administrator, anyone? Okay, then we'll move along. Public comments, announcements. Anyone from the public want to? John?
Good evening, John Chory, Gorham Road in Harwichport. It's just a quick question on the audit tonight. In the past, there was hard copy available. I stopped in the administration office today, and there was not any hard copy available. And I'm just wondering if that will be available for the public. It's hard to follow 173 pages on my iPad.
Well, you tried doing the 306 we read every week.
And I'm just wondering.
We can absolutely send some to the town. That's not an issue.
Okay, great. Thank you
So
very much.
we'll let you know when it's available. We'll let all the public know, and we'll post it.
Great, thank you.
Sure, but thank you. Any other comments from the public? Ann?
Okay. Oh, sure.
Hi, I'm Ann Burchett, East Harwich, and I'm here on behalf of the Great Sand Lakes Association to thank the Select Board as well as Acting Town Administrator Tony Schiavi for getting the paperwork in for the State Revolving Fund application on time last week. We were all sitting on pins and needles hoping that that would go forward as planned. And I do have an ask, which is that any future documents that can be made public go on the wastewater project website, because that gives me a chance to just tell everybody, go here, and it allows me not to screw up the message in relaying it from the town to the neighborhood association. It really should come directly from you, so if you could post things on the website, that would be great. And finally, just to say, if there's anything that you need from us, let us know. We are very happy and eager to help out in any way we can in having this project go successfully. So thank you very much.
I'd like to also point out that, and you experienced it, unlike in the past, within hours after we received notification that we had submitted the application successfully, you got an email
I did, yes.
as part of the association.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thank you, Mr. Schiavi, for that. Okay, any other public announcements? Move on to the consent agenda. We've already taken care of appointing the student officers, and we are not going to be dealing with the third set of minutes. We're pulling them off the September 29th, so with that.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes from September 15th, 2025, and September 22nd, 2025.
Second.
Okay, anyone have any changes or amendments? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to appoint Stephanie Ridenour as alternate to the Barnstable County Dredge Subcommittee with a 3-year term, June 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2027.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Stephanie Ridenour. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Moving along, we're at presentations.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would you like to take the South Harwich meeting?
Yes, sure, I forgot about that. We don't want to have Judy sitting here all night long. If you could just hold on just a second. You can come up. There's going to be two parts here. I've explained that to you. Is that, this is the one that's on the agenda, so, and I don't anticipate any problems with the second part either, but we need to do this in two parts.
Oh, I understand, yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure,
quickly.
absolutely.
Thank you for being here, Judy.
Oh,
I'm going
thank
to
you.
ask administration if they've located the insurance documents that we discussed last week about, for us to be able to approve the building repairs, there was some
Oh,
documents.
yes. It's in
Oh,
the
indemnifying
packet.
us,
It's
yeah.
in the packet. yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Just making sure we got them all.
We did.
Great,
We
thank you.
did.
Thank you, Judy.
No problem.
Well, you don't need to present anything, so if somebody wants to
I'll
make
make a motion.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the request from the South Harwich Meeting House for building repairs as discussed in our previous Select Board meeting and presented here tonight in the packet.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and double seconded to approve it. Just one comment, you do great work. It's
Thank
just
you.
amazing that we have
All of
you
us.
and that the building was saved and it's so historically accurate that the way you've done it, so.
No one remembers it quite like you do, John, you,
Yeah,
Don.
well,
You
we
got-
sold
you
it to
go
the town.
back to
My congregation sold it to you.
The
It was
final vote that night that we started.
it was a dump. And-
Because of Don, otherwise we would never have been there, so.
Well, I appreciate the thought, but without you, nothing would have happened,
well,
so it's like.
A lot of people too, a lot of
It's
others.
amazing that all the volunteers were amazing, the programming is amazing, and it's just a jewel for the town. So with that, it's been moved and
Community
seconded.
comes together, we're powerful, right?
But it's moved and seconded to approve the work.
Fantastic. So we can go ahead with.
Hold on.
With our, oh, so.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Yes, you can.
Great, fantastic. We have them all ready to go, chafing at the bit there. I just wanted to make one comment as long as I'm up here. Make sure the board understands, and I've said it so many times, but if you ever have a meeting that you outgrow this room and you want to come to the South Harwich Meeting House, it is a wonderful meeting place, and we have full audio, visual, we have all sorts of equipment now. now that make it just as good as here, probably.
And a great vibe.
And a great vibe, yeah, and comfortable seats.
What are you going to charge us?
0, right? But seriously, it's a great place to meet, and anytime the Select Board obviously would like to come there, for any reason whatsoever, just let us know, and we'll just get it ready. So, no problem at all. And thank you so much.
Thank you for all you do. Okay, now we're going to head towards the audit. See if you can top that.
Not a chance. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So Renee Davis with CBiz. With me tonight is Romina Mamelli. She's a director with CBiz. Romina, I'm going to say, is the person that did all the work on your audit, but I'm going to get up here and talk a little bit about what we did and explain the audit process. We're here talking about the June 30th, 2024 audit. So later than usual, different year for us this year. Last year, your audit was issued under our previous name. We were Powers & Sullivan for 30-plus years. We merged with a larger firm. In February of 2024, we merged with a national firm named Markham. Markham, in November of last year, merged again with a company called CBiz. So your reports this year are issued under CBiz. We have not changed. The staff hasn't changed. The group hasn't changed. We're doing the same thing. But we did go through 2 corporate mergers, and what that means is not only did our location change, but there were a lot of changes in some of the audit processes that I'll talk a little bit about. Now being a national firm, CBiz, I think you could just go on to the CBiz slide, thank you. CBiz operates as 2 companies. There's CBiz, a publicly traded company, and CBiz CPAs. Your reports are issued under CBiz CPAs. We work together in an alternative practice structure. So 2 separate companies. We are here as CBiz CPAs attesting on your financial statements. And what I'd like to do is go over, somebody asked, there is, should be on your website, your financial statements. Usually it's on your website. I didn't actually verify that, but they should be available on the website. We will get you hard copies too that you can give out to residents. But our goal in doing your audit is to not only, it's a big audit report, it's a big, heavy audit report. There's a lot of information in there. To be able to give our opinion on that audit report, we have to look at your internal controls and how the town operates. So we spend a fair amount of time sort of planning up for the audit, if you will, to make sure we know who's in place. You've had some turnover in financial staff over the past couple of years. So going through as people change, have the processes changed, have the controls changed, are there any issues that we identify that would make the information flowing into your financial statements questionable? So that's sort of a big focus for our audit. I'm just going to catch up with myself here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process we went through, the results, and then the responsibilities of us as the auditors in giving our opinion on the financial statements and your finance department in reviewing the reports and taking responsibility for the reports. So what we do, we issue an opinion on your financial statements. It's about 3 pages towards the beginning of the report. It's on our letterhead. It's the only part of this report that's on our letterhead. All of the audit work we do is meant to allow us to give you that opinion. It's a clean opinion, so there were no issues that we noted. If we came in and found that your books were not in very good order, or that there were a lot of adjustments, or things weren't being recorded timely and correctly in the financial statements, we might have to change that opinion. We didn't. We were able to give a clean opinion on the financial statements. We do, as a matter of course, help to prepare the financial statements. That's sort of a non-audit service that we do. Every other city and town in Massachusetts is the same way. There aren't many communities that are preparing their own financial statements. So we do take the town's records, the town's books and records, help to put those financial statements together. There are a lot of information we'll talk about tonight that go into those financial statements that aren't in your general ledger, like the OPEB liability, the pension liability, some of the big things that happen that do impact your financial position. The rating agencies do look at that information. We have to audit that information, but it's not part of your day-to-day operations. So we're testing that and looking at that. We're following not only regular auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, but also government auditing standards. So we have to look at your internal controls in a different light because of government auditing standards. This year, you actually did not need to have a single audit. Usually I'm up here talking about that you needed to have, you had so much in federal expenditures that you had to have a separate report issued. You didn't meet the threshold this year for that. It was $750,000. It's actually going up to $1 million for 26. So you needed it in years of, I'm going to say, the high ARPA years, you met the threshold. But unless you spend $750 in 1 year, if you do spend it in ARPA money in 1 year, you'd have to have a single audit, and that means more compliance testing related to that. So our responsibilities are to plan. You catching up with me there?
Yes.
Thanks. To plan and perform the audit to get reasonable but not absolute assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. That means, and just for clarity, we're testing the information in there, but we're not looking at every account. We're not looking at every fund. We do a materiality based on the opinion units in your financial statement. So every column in your financial statements is an opinion unit that we're opining on. We test based on materiality for those. So when we're selecting expenditures or procurement to test or receipts and revenue, we pick a sample of everything. We do it across the funds, but we're not looking at everything, which means something could go wrong that we didn't catch. We hope that we're catching anything that's significant or material. We do a lot of analysis to make sure that things are trending accurately and they make sense, but we're not looking at every transaction. It's really a sample of transactions. We want to make sure that you have internal controls here in town, that somebody here is looking at every transaction. So that's what we're spending our time documenting. And somebody in town is, your finance team is responsible for reviewing the financial statements. We draft them, we give a draft, and then somebody here is responsible for saying, yes, we have a system of internal controls. We've reviewed the financial statements, we understand them, and we take responsibility for them. So we get a representation letter back from management saying, yes, we approve them. And honestly, it's a big report. There's some back and forth that happens. We give a draft report, there's some questions, there's some tweaks that go into that. So it's a process. So to start the audit, we come in and we understand the controls. So again, if everything's the same as last year, we walk through and document your controls and we test them. If your cash receipts are handled the same way they were the year before, we're just going to test that process to make sure you have the correct signatures and authorization. We look at your warrants to make sure they're being approved properly. And if you have changes in staff or, people leave, people come, we want to make sure that we understand what has changed. Same thing. One of the newer things more recently is IT controls, right? A big problem that we see in cities and towns. It keeps happening. None of us are free from this, but do you have enough security in place to know that if somebody comes in and takes control over your system, you are going to have you're protecting personal information, you have controls in place to make sure you can recover that information, but things happen, right? We've had a lot of places that they've had people hack their systems. In some places, even when they think they have good controls, it doesn't work. So it's a focus of our audit now. We do have, one of the things being a national firm, we have a whole IT department that gets involved in helping us to assess your IT controls. And so once we're planning the audit, we say, what are the risk areas? And we are required under AICPA standards to develop our audit procedures to test based on risk. So what are the riskiest areas in your audit or in your financial statements that something could go wrong? And then what are we going to do as auditors to test that? One thing I will say always that ends up there is management override of internal controls, right? So everything could go correctly into your ledgers, but then someone could go in and book a journal entry to try to change things. So we focus on looking at manual journal entries. That's always something that we could never overcome, but we test based on that. Then after year end, after your books are closed, after everything is reconciled and you're ready for us to come in, the town sends us ledgers and we do what we call year end work. That is cutoff work. That is making sure that the cash that you say you have on your ledgers, we can confirm with the bank, that we get an outside confirmation, investments are fairly stated, cash is fairly stated. that you have good, strong budgetary controls in place. What town meeting voted for a budget is actually what shows up in your financial statements, that you are not overspending your budget, or there's controls to keep you from doing that, and that you have recorded all of your expenditures at year end. So cut off, making sure revenue went into the correct year and expenditures go into the correct year. Some of the things that you do only at year end is capital assets. You're not keeping track of fixed assets as you go. It's something that happens after year end. And then making sure the financial statements are in compliance with all of the new standards. So we're following GASB standards, the Government Accounting Standards Board. They are up to GASB 104. So every year we have to pay attention to which standards came into play and make sure that you have reflected those in your financial statements. So I mentioned the results. It was an unmodified opinion. That means it's a clean audit report. Your financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There was no non-compliance to be reported. And I'm going to walk through. I am happy to take questions on the financial statements. I'm going to go through sort of a summary of them.
We're going to try to let you finish first.
You can let me finish if you want. If you want to interrupt me, that's okay too. It is, you do an annual comprehensive financial report. So we call it an ACFR. The acronym is the ACFR. But what it is, it has your financial statements that are required inside of a much broader, larger report. So management provides a letter of transmittal. You have an introductory section. All of that is not part of the audit. It comes right from management. The financial section, the middle section, is the audit. That's what your financial statements would look like if you didn't do the whole ACFR report. I mentioned before, my audit opinion is the first part of that. It's a clean audit opinion. Then we have something called MD&A, or Management's Discussion and Analysis. That is, I like to say, the Cliff Notes. If you read the MD&A, it will tell you why things went up and down in the financial statements. So it explains the different sets of financial statements. It gives you 2 years of comparative data on the financial statements at a very summary level. But if you don't want to read the whole report, start with the MD&A. And then we have the basic financial statements themselves. And under government auditing standards, you have 3 different bases of accounting. You have full accrual statements. That has all of your long-term assets and liabilities, so the capital assets, your OPEB liabilities, your pension liabilities.
Before you go any further, because we're big on this right now, just for the public, it's other post-employment benefits.
Or
like
health insurance for retirees.
There you go.
Why couldn't we have just called it that?
We keep flinging acronyms around. I just want to make sure I explain them.
It is, yep, OPEB, other post-employment benefits, and it's health insurance or other benefits that the town is responsible for paying for your employees once they retire. And that is, you're required only to fund that on a pay-as-you-go basis. So you have retirees, and you're paying part of their a portion of their health insurance every year. There is really a liability for the town that is unfunded. You haven't put money aside to fund that liability. And we're going to get into those numbers in just a little bit. So full accrual financial statements have all of those long-term assets and liabilities at a very, very high level. Then we go to fund-based financial statements. That's more what you're used to looking at. You have a general fund. You have some major funds because they meet the criteria of being a major fund, like the Community Preservation Fund. We've talked a lot about that this year. The CPA fund. And you had federal grants. What's the other one that we have now? I'm going to forget it.
Hold on. It is federal grants.
Thank you. I was right, federal grants. So there's major funds, and then there's one sort of column or bucket called non-major governmental funds. That has all of your other special revenue funds, capital project funds, and trust funds. Because you're doing an ACFR, those non-major funds, if you weren't doing an ACFR, it would end there. You're just going to see one column, non-major governmental funds. Because you're doing an ACFR, there's a combining schedule in the back that breaks that out into even further detail, and we'll take a look at that. Then, for your financial statements, your enterprise funds are showed separately in separate columns, and you have your fiduciary funds, which basically is your OPEB trust fund. So you're setting some money aside to help offset that OPEB liability. Then the notes to the financial statements take up a big part of this report. They give a lot of information, especially on OPEB and pension liabilities, to readers. So if you're looking at cash in the financial statements, you really want more information. There's a whole cash footnote that gives you more detail on that. So all of the different main sections of the financial statements are supported by notes to the financial statements. And then unaudited, or in the back of the report, there's what we call required supplementary information. That is, the key one there is your budget, your general fund budget to actual and your CPA fund budget to actual. That gives you at a very granular level your budgeted revenues and how revenues came in compared to your budget. Same thing with expenditures and encumbrances, so you can really see how, that's, people often ask, like, how does this lead into our free cash? The budget to actual, that really kind of leads into the calculation of your free cash or your available fund balance. And there's notes to the RSI, and again, some combining supplementary schedules. And then the back section of this report is statistical information. It's 10 years worth of trend information on the town's finances. So all of your financial statements, 10 years worth, are in the back, along with revenue, debt, and other statistical information. So it's a big report. I'm going to focus on the financial section, or the middle section of that report. And we'll start with the general fund, the budgetary general fund, I will say. Your final budget was $85.5 million for fiscal year '24. You budgeted to use $7 million worth of free cash, right? So you have free cash available for you, you appropriated that, and overlay or reserve for abatements, $200,000 was released to use towards your budget. Revenues came in very well. Revenues were $3.8 million over budget. Your expenditures came in $2.1 million under budget, so all of that is good, positive budgetary results. You carried forward encumbrances at year end, so amounts that you needed from that budget to keep paying 24 bills that you were going to pay in 25, just under $7 million. And your general fund increased. All of that tied together, the general fund went up by $1.5 million. So remember, you're budgeted to decrease your fund balance by $7 million, right? You budgeted to use your savings account, but because everything else came in so well and your encumbrances sort of offset that, your general fund went up by $1.5 million. So it was a positive year for the general fund. The next major fund is the CPA fund. The CPA fund, the final budget was $4.7 million. Revenues came in over budget by $429,000. You carried over, so you had projects going on of $2.6 million. Those sometimes with CPA can carry on for a couple of years. You transferred some money out, some to pay debt service related to CPA projects, and some to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So $973,000 went to the Affordable Housing Trust. So the net decrease in that fund was $450,000. Again, that's sort of the planned use of funds, something that you would expect. And, okay. The general fund, just make sure I didn't miss a page here. So the general fund itself, I'm going now up to the regular financial statements. If you're looking at the general fund in your budgetary financial statements, it includes the stabilization funds. You're required to keep them, and it's available enough to you that accounting standards require that you report that. So your fund balance was $26.6 million for your general fund. That has stabilization in it. Your regular stabilization was over $6 million. The affordable housing stabilization was 1.6, and wastewater was 1.6. When we're looking at your general fund, we want to look at it as a percentage of your expenditures, right? You want to make sure you have enough money in your general fund that you have flexibility, financial flexibility. You were certainly within those ranges. You had 35% of general fund expenditures in the general fund. Unassigned fund balance was $16 million, or 22% of general fund expenditures. So again, healthy fund balance. And the reservations in that fund, you have some encumbrances and some articles, but overall, it was healthy reserves and a healthy fund balance. And at the end of '24, you had $3.3 million that you had assigned or already reserved to pay for the next year's budget. So you're building up, you're creating free cash, if you will, and then you're using that once it's available, which is a good way to think of it. You don't want to use it for operations and rely on it, but you do want to be able to use it to offset things that the town needs to do. And non-major, the last column of that I mentioned, non-major governmental funds is all, that's all the other special revenue, capital project, and trust funds. You had $10.7 million in revenue. That was intergovernmental revenue, so some of your grants, revolving funds, and your receipts reserved for appropriations all led into the $10.7 million. $4 million in expenditures. You did issue some bonds last year, so it was $3.2 million came in bond proceeds, and some net transfers in and transfers out. Overall, your non-major governmental funds ended with $5.3 million in ending fund balance. That starts, if anyone's looking at the financial statements themselves, on page 111, it starts the balance sheet and the income statement for all of those other funds. GASB 100, we'll go through the implementation. I mentioned we're up to 104 with the GASBs. The only one that impacted you for 24 was GASB 100. And what that did is we talked about major and non-major funds. If something is coming into being a major fund or going out of being a major fund, you have to show it on your face of your financial statements. So you implemented that. It's in your financial statements. Not too many people are going to care about it. It just gives you a column to say last year it was shown here and now we're moving it to non-major. You actually had one fund come into being major and one go out. And we do that assessment every year. Management, general funds always major. Your CPA fund, you always like to keep that major because you kind of want to keep an eye on it and see it right in the front of the financial statements. Anything else is just a matter of how much activity they have. And then we'll talk about the, we mentioned the net pension liability and the OPEB liability. They're such huge numbers. Again, it's not part of your regular budget, but there's a liability there that you have to fund, and it is a big part of your full accrual financial statements. So for the net pension liability, of course, you're part of Barnstable County Retirement. Now, pension liabilities here in Massachusetts, you are required to be on a funding schedule. They have to be on a plan to be fully funded. I think it's 2040 still. Barnstable County is set up on their funding schedule to be fully funded by 2037. So every 2 years, there's a new actuarial valuation that tells them how they're doing, and either you're doing good or you have to change that funding schedule. What happens if they change the funding schedule? You know that it impacts your appropriation, how much you have to appropriate to give them every year. So what you're paying to Barnstable County every year, part of it is your regular normal cost, and part of it is you're paying down that net old liability. I'm going to say the old liability, the unfunded liability. So your share of Barnstable County's liability is $34 million. That is down. It was $37 million the prior year. Most of that, we're on track to have a funding schedule, but a lot of it just depends on the market and how the investments do over time. At the end of 24, you were 66.58% funded. So again, the goal is to get up to 100% by 2037. It is tough. A couple bad years end up stretching that out. But it's $34 million now. The net pension expense was $3.8 million. And I mentioned it gets reevaluated every 2 years. So just like you do with OPEB, Barnstable County gets a new valuation every 2 years. They look at all the assumptions and the information going into that, and they recalculate what the liability is. And in the back of your financial statements, under the required supplementary information, there's a 10-year schedule showing you how that liability is changing over time. So that is, we're up to 10 years now. We started building that up, and you have a whole 10-year trend schedule showing. And you said you talk a lot about OPEB, but we'll talk about other post-employment benefits. You do have a trust fund set aside. So unlike pension, OPEB, there's no retirement system doing it for you, right? You're doing the work yourself for OPEB. The town hires an actuary to value your OPEB liability. You are setting money aside in a trust fund within the town, and you're investing that money. Your contributions have, for the past couple of years, they've gone down. There's $300,000 a year that you've been putting into that trust fund. And the ending balance you have at the end of the year is $6 million. So the total OPEB liability, the net OPEB liability, net of your $6 million is $41.2 million. So it actually did go up this year. A couple of things went into that. It is your contribution rate changed. A few years ago, you were giving more into the trust fund. Bringing that down, the actuary takes that into account. Also, the actuary revisited the mortality table, so the actuaries look at how long people are living, and if people are living longer, you're going to have to pay more for their health insurance. So you updated your mortality tables, and you updated some of your other assumptions, your contributions, and the health care costs. So we're trying to estimate what it's going to cost to pay for retirees' health insurance in the future. So it's up to $41.2 million. The good thing about OPEB is there is not a legal requirement. It's not like pension right now that you have to have it funded by a certain point in time. It is certainly a good idea. It's a good idea to do it, but you don't have that pressure, you don't have that deadline, and you are putting money into a trust. So you are getting to the point that you are starting to build up some assets to offset that liability. And again, we're going towards 10-year schedules. I think we're up to 8 or 9 years now in the back of the report for that. A big part of the audit is looking at your debt. We do confirm the debt with a third party. Just like cash, we're making sure that we can get audit evidence that the information in your books and records is accurate. So the best way we can do that is to go and get a confirmation from the people holding the debt or your financial advisors. You had $38.8 million in general government debt. The outpayment schedules on that are going out to 2053. It was still a relatively small part of your budget. It was only 3.2% of your initial budget this year, right? We want to make sure that your debt schedule payments aren't eating so much of your operating budget that they're taking away from other things that the town needs to do to operate. You do have water and wastewater in separate funds. Water, of course, was $8.1 million. You have outpayment schedules till 2054 with that. And wastewater is only $95,000. And you did have some short-term debt because you had some loans with the Mass Clean Water Trust, some interim loans. I mentioned earlier that uniform guidance single audit, you did not meet the threshold, so you didn't need to have one of those for this year. We continue to look at that, right, to watch your federal spending. For 25, it's $750,000. For 26, it goes up to $1 million. So anytime you have over $1 million in federal expenditures in 1 year, you would need to have a single audit. And again, that's all I have for the financial statements. The other part of this is really just me reiterating sort of management's responsibilities. The reports that you get, the reports that we sign, everything in those, it's really the responsibilities of management. All of the information comes from the town. We gather the information and help to put it together. Management has to understand, has to have somebody in place that can sign what we call the rep letter, that can take responsibility for that. And management's responsible for having internal controls, for making sure, we come in once a year and do the audit and do the checks and balances, but really on a regular basis. Is cash being reconciled every month, or receivables being reconciled, et cetera? And we had no findings related to that. When we came in to do the audit, everything was in good shape. And I don't need to go into detail. I talked a lot about our responsibilities and the audit emphasis areas. I told you, we do a risk assessment. It's cash, it's OPEB, it's debt, it's IT controls, and anything else. There are times that management asks us to look at a certain area. We certainly do that through the audit, but not everything gets picked every year to be tested. And do we have questions on the financial statements?
We'll see. Before I turn it over to Tony, I know he's had this statement that he's made before, and it's worth reiterating, and I'm pretty sure you agree with this. People come and people go because that's what normally happens, sometimes in greater numbers, sometimes in lesser numbers. But it's the processes and the internal controls being maintained that are really important, and we're pretty proud of being able to maintain that. So with that, I'll start off with Tony.
Well said, that's what I was going to say. So, but thank you. These audits are really important, especially, if there are areas that we want the auditors to look at. They have their standard framework that, they need to use. We cooperate with that, but also, there may be areas that management wants them, particularly if there's risk areas that we see, and so we appreciate their flexibility. And I'm not sure if they had any this year, but I always have a handful that I usually ask them to take a look at again as part of the risk-based assessment to make sure that those areas where they're tends to be risk or maybe found in another audit somewhere else to say, hey, we don't, can you check and make sure we're not, having that same issue? So I appreciate that. The only other question I have is, when do you think we'll start our engagement for 2025?
We need to know when you'll be ready for it.
Okay, we just
yeah,
closed
it
the
was-
books.
Okay.
Yep.
So definitely you want to be on a faster track schedule. Again, there were timing issues last year. Should be done on a quicker schedule. But no, we're ready whenever you are.
Yeah, just some of what we heard just this week in talking with our financial advisors, particularly with borrowing money, that, they're getting, harder to get if you don't have a completed audit. So
True.
thankfully, the one we just did, we had this audit completed.
You do. If you are going in front of the rating agencies at all, you want to make sure we know that in advance so that we can meet your deadlines.
Okay.
Okay. Questions from the board? Pete?
Yeah, less so with the audit, it's one of those things where, good, bad, or indifferent, my professional life has been littered with audits, and I've always deemed them to be, a learning tool more so than a gotcha type of thing. But great news to read that there were a lack of findings, right? That's ultimately what we all want to see. And I'll disclose, I didn't have a chance to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, just not enough time over the weekend to review it all. However, so my questions won't really be based on money, but curious as to, realizing now you're a national firm, how many municipalities in Massachusetts do you folks do business with?
In Massachusetts, 90? It's a lot.
90 or so?
It's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
and it's also school districts, counties, retirement systems.
Okay.
It's not just
municipal.
cities, towns,
Gotcha.
yeah.
In our previous firm, our small firm, we were just Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Now, where we've merged, it is Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, there's a lot, Rhode Island, there's a lot of Connecticut. We are based out of the Boston office and still focus on Massachusetts.
Yeah, with about 90 or so clients here locally. Okay, great. As far as the audit itself, what are the number of auditors that actually did the work?
I will ask Romina, because she was the director, I was the managing director. I signed the report.
So there were 4 of us that actually worked on the audit.
Okay.
Between planning phase and year-end phase. We had started the audit in October for our planning work because we were waiting for everything to be finalized. And then we had finished that work. We had gotten our ledgers, the town's ledgers, in December, middle of December. And then we worked again in February and March to get it all audited and get all of our documentation done. And so in the course of that time, there was probably 4 or 5 individuals. There were definitely 4. I think I used one person for planning that wasn't on the year end.
And I think drafts went out in June. Yeah.
Was it a combination of on-site, remote, hybrid?
Usually we're on site for a day or 2. We have a portal that we request a lot of the information be uploaded prior to our start. It gets a little bit funky when all of a sudden everything is a little delayed, right? So we had to move our schedule a little bit. I think originally we were scheduled to be out here to do our year-end field work in October. But with the changes that were going on with the finance team, we allow them, just let us know when you're done, and then we rescheduled based on that. So
did we didn't have any on-site this year?
I think we might have come out for a day or 2, but I think that would have been in October.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. And as far as the internal control review, right, we just talked about internal controls again. I guess how much of the focus is put on that, if you could do a percentage? You obviously you're looking at numbers too, and as you said, you're kind of grabbing, a snapshot or.
The whole first part of the audit is documenting controls. How does cash come in? Who's approving it? How are bills being paid? How are you filing procurement? And if you have, it's really key to make sure that as people come and people go, we know who's reviewing and approving transactions, who can book a journal entry and put it in your system. There's a heavy focus on that.
Right.
Especially up front doing it, and then we randomly select. There has to be elements of unpredictability in the audit, so we can't ask for the same things over and over. So if last year we focused on one thing, this year we kind of have to change courses and do something different. It's not a gotcha, but it is to just make sure that people know what we're going to look at every year. somebody could go around the system, right?
Right, understood. No, and it's great to know that that much emphasis is put on the internal controls, because I think to the acting town administrator's comments, as well as yours, Mr. Chair, that is incredibly important as we move forward with future bonding and the controls that are in place and adhered to, which are more important than in place, but they're actually adhered to. So thank you, I appreciate your time.
Nina, you have anything?
I have nothing. No, thank you very much.
What I understand, no red flags stood out as far as the town?
Nope.
How is our IT protections, your opinion?
So it is so hard to comment on that because I don't think any of us are safe. Nothing came to our attention. We did, I'm going to say, we have the forms and the checklist. There was nothing that was brought to our attention that said, oh, there's a problem. We go through sort of a standard, again, now as a national company, we have an IT department that kind of gives us the protocols that we have to follow, and if we find anything in that, we have to get them involved very quickly. Nothing came up during the audit. That will continue to be something that we have to look at, because I am still going to cities and towns and money's getting wired out of accounts that shouldn't get wired out of accounts. It's happening. Ransomware, where people are taking over people's systems, and I have had everything from somebody pays the ransom because they just want their system back, to communities that are able to shut down the system, close that, and just open up a copy of it that they had and not have to pay them. But it is rampant in cities and towns. It's really a problem. And a lot of it has to do with employee training, right? Because usually the way that someone gets access is someone clicked on something they shouldn't have.
Malicious URLs.
I know. It's tough, and it's harder. They're getting smarter and smarter, I think. So nothing came up, but that does not, I'm not giving you any guarantee that that's not going to happen in the future.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you both for being here. Certainly, I'm satisfied with the outcome. Thank you for all your work. To Pete's questions, I'm going to expand on that a little bit, and I definitely don't like to deal in hypotheticals or what-ifs. But if you did find that there were inconsistencies or deficiencies with our internal control procedure, which is a large part of your initial work, do you expand off of that and dig, in other words, do you dig a little deeper in other areas?
We do,
You do.
right? So we have to understand your controls, do a risk assessment, and then develop our audit steps.
That's my question. Thank you so much. Thanks again for being here.
I don't have anything, but we do have some partners from our finance committee here if they wish to ask anything directly. In the meantime, I promise you will get the same copy that we get. So if you guys want to say anything, that would be fine. Otherwise, we can...
No, I don't have any comments. Thank you. No, thank you.
Okay, terrific. Just want to give you the opportunity. Well, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. And again, it's satisfying to know that the controls and the process is really what's happening, is what's working.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Yeah, if you want to make a motion to A.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve and authorize the Select Board to sign a taking of easements within Hummingbird Lane for the Phase 3A Sewer Extension Project.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. You want to make any comments about that, or?
No, it's just another part of the process for the Great Sand Lakes sewer project to be able to put the sewer in the private road.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody knows we're still moving forward on everything. So it's been moved and seconded to approve and authorize the Select Board to sign those easements. Well, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. The next one doesn't take any action, but it's an acknowledgement of the, we have an open meeting law complaint from ex-selectman Michael McCaskill dated September 29th, 2025. We have referred the documentation over to KP Law, Michelle Randazzo, and she will advise us on next steps, but she's going to be part of an agenda in another meeting and advise us on next steps. So, all right. Yeah, this is pro forma, but it would be really nice if we did vote to authorize the the release of our budget message directly to the Monomoy Regional School Committee at this point in time. So if somebody would like to make that motion.
Mr. Chair, and before I make the motion, I just would like to update the board and the public. I received word from the chair of the school committee that they will be voting on their why
Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday,
Yeah.
and we should have that Friday. And on that note, I move that we vote to send the Select Board budget message to the Monomoy Regional School Committee as presented in the packet.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to send along the budget message. And I have had several conversations with Meredith so that we, chair to chair, we know what's going on with each other. So it's been moved and seconded to send the budget message to your Monomoy Regional School Committee. Any further comments, Pete?
It may be semantics, but I'd like the letter to also go to the Monomoy Regional District Administration Team.
That was in my motion, I believe.
Okay. So both the school committee and administration.
Administration, okay.
All right. So with that, any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. All right. Moving on to the second reading of the email policy. I wasn't here for the first, but I'm sure it was exciting. Yeah, you're on.
I wasn't sure if you got your fill during the first reading.
I typically don't feel that I have the need to watch any meeting that I wasn't at.
Sure. Well, Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk, thank you very much for having me and for doing the second reading of the policy. As the very quick snapshot of what we discussed last week, at this stage, the town has made an investment in email licenses, Town of Harwich email licenses, to be issued to town board and committee members. The IT department has done the heavy lift of actually creating those accounts for all present members of town boards and committees to the tune of 140 plus individual accounts. Before we actually begin the work of rolling those out and giving folks their credentials, I wanted to recommend that the board consider adopting a policy governing how folks use those accounts. So the draft that I had proposed is before you for the second reading tonight. Sort of in summary, the idea is that all sitting members will be issued a Town of Harwich email account, and then all folks, as they are appointed or elected, will be issued an account when they come on board. They should use that account and only that account for all sort of official business they do in their capacity as a town official. They shouldn't use that for their personal business. And then they recognize that that information is a permanent Town of Harwich public record. The town may need to do a search of those records in response to a public records request. Is something we are seeing more often, our public records requests focusing on email correspondence. Something I don't know if everyone is aware, that when committee members send or receive emails about matters that are within their jurisdiction, those emails are public records under the Massachusetts statute, and that's true even if they use their personal account. So this is sort of a safeguard so that they know their personal accounts are free from town intervention, their town accounts are subject to that intervention, and it also is something that enables us as a town to kind of archive and retain in accordance with retention schedules. So it's a safeguard for the town, kind of first and foremost, and then I think importantly it also will help facilitate communication between board members, also with town staff and with the public. So we err on the side of not releasing board members' personal email addresses publicly, again, just in recognition and protection of their privacy. But that can pose a barrier when members of the public want to correspond with them about items that they have coming before them. So the benefit of a town account is that we can publish and distribute that information and allow the public that easier access to members.
Any further discussion with the town clerk? You seem like
Well, nothing to the town clerk, but I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, assuming, I'll make a motion momentarily to approve the second reading, but when it comes back for a third reading, in no disrespect to the town clerk and/or her office, but if I'd like to see it either on the select board's letterhead, town administrator's letterhead, or whatever the appropriate letterhead is. as it's the board's policy, that's all.
It-
So
it-
it- oop, that-
And further to that, Emily and I have had quite a few discussions on this, and I do want to say upfront and for the public, but just as importantly for our own volunteers, that this is not being done to facilitate them serially deliberating over issues that are in front of them. It is merely to be done for informational purposes so that we can reach people that need to be reached. And I'm sure you will agree with that.
Yes. And could I jump off of that for just a moment?
Sure.
I have talked with Sarah Eaton, our IT director, since your last meeting last week. I just wanted to reassure the board, I know, Pete, you brought it up last week, that we kind of have a plan for rollout and training. So with an eye towards you hopefully adopting a policy tonight, we've put a couple of different in-person training dates on the calendar. We've planned a sort of tiered rollout in a way that would be manageable for both of our offices to actually assign those accounts and get folks up and running with their use. And Sarah is also working on written instructions. So I think we're in a good place to do that. And I'm working with KP Law to make sure that is incorporated in a more pronounced way in the upcoming open meeting law training as well.
And before the motion, I'd like to really thank you. This was a mammoth task. We've been talking about this for, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years now. And it's not an easy lift. And you and Sarah have been able to come up with this. At one point, we were saying you didn't have any money, so we're not going to do it. But it really wasn't working well to have a general email for each of these boards. So my hat's off to you for all the effort you made. Now, Pete.
Mr. Chair, a motion to approve the second reading on board and committee email policy as outlined in tonight's packet.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the second reading. We'll be moving on to the third later. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thanks again for all the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, the draft, the 30-day review letter for Penrose project at 456 Queen Anne Road. And as I have said before, I'd like being able to identify that for people who don't use GPS maps all the time. That's the Marsline property that he had his cow pasture on.
Correct. So we're in the 30-day comment period, so we have to have the letter submitted by the 17th. So I drafted the letter based on our last board meeting. Hopefully I captured the sentiment and intent in the letter for the board's review. I think it pretty much covers everything. We added in a statement regarding our continued desire to discuss the ingress and egress portion of the project, which obviously is a major part of the regulatory review once it gets to that point. So,
And that's kind of, just to go off sideways here for a second, that's kind of why I've had a discussion with you, kind of why I didn't want to just call this 456 Queen Anne Road, because by far the greater frontage is on Pleasant Lake Avenue and 124, and it's hard to identify it, for the general public when they just see numbers in a road. So it's the same property. It's bounded by both things, and I don't want to be hemmed in by using that address so that only that is the access and egress. That's still yet to be determined.
yes, and I think it was for commonality, just not to get confused when they get up, because that's what, the address they were using. But yes, you're absolutely correct. Everything is open because it does have frontage on both, both streets.
Open it up to the board. Anybody have any comments about the letter? Adding, subtracting?
No, I appreciated the additional comments.
You would like to make
May I?
Sure,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Scott Norm, Pleasant Lake. Reading through last Monday's packet, the 80 or 100 pages on the Penrose project, I was surprised that there was no mention of hydrological studies or the potential use of advanced septic systems to treat the wastewater from that 60-unit project. I see it as a great opportunity to employ some of those advanced technologies to remove phosphorus and nitrogen from that wastewater, some of which I've learned are actually quite cost-effective and quite technologically available, some of which are in pilot, Mass DEP pilot program phase of approval. And I don't know if it deserves to be in the letter along with the egress and access. And I know that I believe that there will be additional opportunities for the public to make comments such as this when the process moves forward. But I wanted to take this opportunity to express my desire to see some attention to those issues as we go forward with this project, which I'm fully supportive of, and I'm actually quite impressed with the design, but I am worried about the proximity to the Herring River headwaters, Hinckley's Pond, in which the town has invested quite a bit of money to try and reduce the amount of available phosphorus with the alum treatment project from 2019. And if we have an opportunity to reduce the addition of new phosphorus to that pond and that headwaters area, I think we should take advantage of it.
And thanks for the comments, Scott. Brendan's here, and I'm sure he could bring that back to the trust for them to have further discussion. And it absolutely, certainly will be a point of discussion with the ZBA when they start to come up with that, because that's a design feature. But it's well-spoken, and the one thing I can assure you is there's not going to be a pipe going by there for them to hook into for a sewer, so there has to be some discussion about how to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So, vote on the actual letter? Did we take the vote yet, or?
No.
Okay, so it's out there right now, so, and if there are no further comments,
Right.
all in favor?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the 30-day review letter for the Penrose project at 456 Queen Anne Road,
Second.
Also known as the Marsline property.
also known as the Marsline project.
Okay, and it's still seconded. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Discussion on the Assistant Town Administrator recruitment process.
So I just, it's open again for continued discussion after, any of the board members had a chance to go back and take a look at the draft job description. I did have a conversation with Select Board Member Kelleher on a couple things related to communication that we can put in there, but I know the board the last time wanted to sort of have it packaged up and more or less ready to go at some point, whether that's with the new administrator or not. So I'm just looking for some additional guidance or things that anybody wants to recommend for changes. I know I mentioned related to potential, salary. Right now, the position is in the personnel bylaw. We did have just a brief discussion of whether it made sense potentially to pull it out of that, to give more flexibility to the board if it viewed the position in perhaps a different light than maybe, how it's been looked at from inception until, today, in terms of being part of the senior management or senior executive team in Town Hall. So,
So
and I
I'd like to
Mr.
actually
Howell
throw-
didn't have a chance to
Yeah, I'd
opine
like
on
to
this
throw in
last
a
week,
couple
so-
of comments just for everybody's consideration, because I was not here. I get some merits of holding off, but by the same token, that puts you in a position where you've got two people who don't know the town that well at the same moment. If we have somebody that we trust that could mentor that person in the interim period, it would probably be advantageous to the town, plus it gives us a pair of hands right now instead of waiting. And the second thought is, it is rare indeed when you're doing a management recruitment that you get a clean sheet of paper and you get to start the whole office over again. Normally, people inherit the staff they get. I don't see that, it benefits the town all that much to hold off on that hire, because again, we're going to wind up with two holes that are going to have to be filled at the exact same time, and there's nobody there that can rely on anybody else, because they're both going to be, it's not just what they know from their prior employment, it's how it applies to this town. So I think it's rather important that we allow the recruitment to go forward, because we still have control over approving whoever that candidate is or not at the end of that. So, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have given this quite a considerable amount of thought and attention. I'll agree with the chair 100%. I think this needs to move forward for all of the reasons the chair spoke of, and then I'll add, we don't really know how much longer you're going to be in that seat, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And from I won't speak for the board, but from what I've experienced so far, is it would be smart of us to allow the acting town administrator to bring somebody in to move and advance that person. So when the time comes where the new TA lands, that person has had time under Tony. So I'm fully in support of that move, Mr. Chair, and I also see this as two things that we're talking about right here. We're talking about either directing or not directing the acting town administrator, or supporting the acting town administrator and going out and finding somebody, and then also discussing the modification, edits, or changes to the existing assistant town administrator's job description. My feeling is, I'd like to put a motion on the table, if it's a motion that we need to do this, to at least take care of one of those two things. At
Yeah,
least-
then we have to accelerate the
and then
actual
we would-
job description.
That's exactly right. So would a motion at this point?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize the acting town administrator to
Begin the recruitment
begin the
process.
recruitment process for an assistant town administrator to step into that position.
I second that.
Discussion. You look like you're in great thought.
Great thought, as always.
He's ready.
No, when it comes to this particular motion, I'm in full support. I want to talk more about the next steps once we complete this.
Sure, and that's what I was going to say, that's the imponderable right now, that we have to accelerate the description and what the process looks like. And again, there's a fail-safe here. We both get to talk about the actual finished job description, and just like we would for department heads, we get to be able to review the actual candidate when they get there. So there's a couple of times that we're involved with the actual recruitment. But you're right, I mean, there has to be follow-on discussion. So we want to vote on this and then have that, or?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, so the motion is to empower the assistant town administrator to begin the recruitment process for an assistant town administrator. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Go ahead.
So relative to the next steps, what I'd like to see, rather than us muddy the waters, is ask Mr. Schiavi to present to us his recommendation, not only on the job description, but where the position lies, whether it's a contract position or not, and then reflected salary of said position.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I don't know that we need a vote, but wouldn't that be our loose consensus, that that's exactly what we want, is to get a recommendation from him?
If I can ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I see two assistant town administrator job descriptions. One, I believe, is the one that's in play now, and then one, was that you, Tony, who created that second?
The draft,
The
based
draft.
on the conversation that we had about, sort of elevating it above where perhaps it's been since its inception, and how it's been used, I would say. If you look at the original job description, I think in the very beginning of it, it calls it a developmental position
yeah.
versus, are we looking for somebody to come in that's seasoned and ready to step in a senior management role right next to the town administrator?
What, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I really like about the draft from Mr. Schiavi is it screams delegation, it screams responsibility, it screams, I trust you in the role, and I'm going to use you to the fullest extent to do the best work for the town possible. I really like that theme that at least I see in this draft. And to Pete's point, maybe this is something we can work with, or you could work off of, or we could help add or edit, not muddy the waters at all. I would suggest that a lot of it has been done already.
Yeah, that's why we're waiting for a final recommendation.
Okay,
Sorry.
excellent.
Sure. And in talking with Tony throughout the last couple of months, that's absolutely his mindset, is we get good people in, and you delegate to them authorities and let them do what they're supposed to be doing. So that's the model.
So what do we do now?
Wait for him to come back to us.
All right, Tony, hurry up, just take your time.
I see an agenda item in the future, Jen. Okay, moving on, review and approve the contract for Allen Harbor
Mr. Chair?
Marine. Yes.
Sorry, just to go back.
Okay.
What would be your next step now that we have given support to you going and And
Well, before he can advertise, right, so we need to finalize the job description, we need to finalize
What's it worth?
whether it's going to be in the PBL or not, because, there's an action the board would need to take, and then we would have to establish the salary range for the position. And just recently, although I'll say we got the finance director position, the way we did that out the door right before there was a change, Massachusetts had a recent change. You're not allowed to do what we did with the finance director. You actually have to put a range. So we got one out that I think was the right way to do it, but.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than skillful.
And I put some, salary comparisons in there for towns around the Cape in terms of their assistant town administrator, assistant town manager type position. So I'll use that information to figure out where a recommendation back to the board would be, and then we can go from there. So once that happens, we generate the job advertisement, and we put it out on the street, just like we did with the finance director.
so to the end, accelerating our job of getting you the information you need, because I truly believe the longer that person has under your tutelage and your time here, the better. So I'm not interested in moving this forward down the road weeks and weeks.
No.
I'd like to move on this.
Yeah, as soon as we can finalize the job description, the pay range, and what we're doing with the personnel bylaw part of it, it'd be ready to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
And the only thing from the last time I do need to change was Mr. Pikarski's recommendation. I'm going to tighten up the procurement piece to make sure it's clear that we're not sort of doing what we have done in the past, where all that stuff, because it literally will drown the office and prevent a lot of stuff that you just mentioned from actually happening. So that'll take a little more strategic discussion on how we decentralize some of that, and I'll have to come up with a plan to present to the board about how we may want to structure the procurement processes in the town to make sure all the important projects still need to happen, even though the chief procurement function will remain in the office where it needs to be. That's a state delegation from the state on who the CPO is. So I'll clean that up when I bring the next draft back to the board.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Yep.
And as we were careening down the road for our agenda, we had a motion that we should have made for the easement, so I'd like to double back and have them read it.
Okay, under new business, Mr. Chair, I move that pursuant to provisions of General Laws, Chapter 83, Section 1, and any other power and authority hereunto enabling to adopt the order of taking by which the town will acquire a sewer easement within Hummingbird Lane for the Phase 3A sewer extension project, all as is set forth therein. No damages are awarded for said taking.
Need a second there?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, and this is under the category of we really mean it. So having said that, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you for rereading it. Okay, Allen Harbor Marine, anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a contract with Allen Harbor Marine Services in the amount of $43,367.50.
That's for the town administrator to sign?
A winter boat storage.
Who's signing it?
No, the board is.
Okay, just I'd like that to be in the motion,
For the board to sign.
for the board to sign. Okay, any second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the contract with Allen Harbor Marine Service. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve a contract with Harwich Port Boatyard in the amount of $46,687.50 for winter boat storage, signed by the Select Board.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve a second contract to Harwich Port Boatyard in the amount of $46,687.50. I never understand how we get these odd pennies.
Like to get in the boat storage business, I'll tell you.
Well, I'm just fascinated by the .02 or .50. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to move on to the town administrator's report.
So I do want to announce an appointment of Becky Wilkening to the position of part-time program aide in cultural affairs. So good to have her on board. Just an update on the finance director search. So we have another week to go. It closes out on the 14th. We have 5 applicants, and we have not decided on interviewing any of them yet. We're reviewing the applications. One item that is a little disconcerting is we haven't gotten any applicants with folks with municipal experience. So we're going to take a closer look at the ones we have and decide, what to do next. But I think it's going to be an important part of the review process, just, based on what I see in the finance team right now, and a lot of new faces, some people still getting their feet on the ground that, but it's too early to tell. We still have another, week to go, so I'll update the board next week when that closes out.
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
Can you remind me where that is posted currently?
So it was posted on the MMA website, it's obviously on our website, and then the several, I'll say, official associations related to folks, that are town accountants, treasurers, right, that also may serve as a finance director. A lot of times you'll see them dual-hatted. So there was about 4 or 5 different places that we posted that, plus using Eric's and his network as another opportunity to try to, get the word out, so.
And so with that said, is there any way to refresh any of them to put it back to the top of the search bar?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about the MMA without having to do it all over again. The association, you're more sending it to their general attention kind of thing. But we have one more week to go, and we may end up putting it out again. And that's not a bad thing. We just want to make sure we get enough. So if we decide to do that, we will make sure we refresh at least the Mass Municipal Association to make sure we're back at the top. And I've seen those where they've reopened appointments and they move back up to the top of the list.
Excellent.
We have begun some of the data collection. The board wanted me to work with I meet with the finance team on a weekly basis, starting to get our head wrapped around the Monomoy Regional School District and starting to work on collecting some data from when we get together to talk about how we're going to put I'll say the scenario part of it together in terms of potential alternative approaches to see how those numbers might look in terms of the shift of budget responsibility between the two towns. So we've begun internally starting to pull that data together for an appropriate time to bring back to the board to present some of those alternative funding scenarios. So that's it. Very busy. We're in budget season. I did want to mention for the public, though, we have uploaded the timeline that I presented last week on the annual town meeting and budget timeline. It's now on the website and available for folks to be able to see and start tracking the milestones. You'll see the fall is very busy with a lot of different things between capital improvement, or capital outlay committee, all the budget activity that's going on, tax rate setting, all that. The public can follow along. So it's under the Select Board page, and we'll continue to populate that with data in our effort to be as transparent as possible with everybody about what we're doing. Your budget message is up there as well.
Any further questions? Okay, Select Board report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only question that I would throw out is, now that I see that we're moving forward nicely with the Brooks Academy, I did get a phone call from the Garden Club asking about a timeline. And I don't know if there is one. I don't know if there's any more information that we could give the Garden Club, and I'm happy to call them back, Tony, if you want to email me whatever information about timeline. But I let them know to plant bulbs. Actually, Sharon said, I'll just plant bulbs this year, and I said, that's great, so.
Yeah, I think until we haven't finalized the contract with the
Right.
architectural.
And after that, we need a construction contract.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we're a ways out.
But I think once we get them on contract, just like I did with the Great Sand Lake portion of route, right, creating a milestone chart that
Right.
takes us from, when we get the design firm on, that'll be one of the first things, lay out your process to when we'll be ready to put the thing out to bid and get the actual construction firm or whoever's going to do it on board. So
Great.
we'll try to do it in that fashion if folks can follow along.
Perfect, thank you.
Mark?
I mentioned it earlier, I was at a meeting with Mark Forrest, County Commissioner. He said that in the state budget, there is no money for dredging. They're going to try and get something in, but it's just something to keep in mind as we get into budget season. Thanks.
Indeed.
I don't really have anything, except for I will state that I did go to that service today for Izzy Thompson, and my condolences also go to her husband, Alan, who Alan has served as a Select Board member for years. He's been a part of this community, so my heart would go out to him and his entire family. He also now serves on our Water Wastewater Commission.
One of the founding members of the Pleasant Bay Alliance.
It's true.
Well, since we have time,
No, we
with the
don't.
board's indulgence, perhaps we could go line by line with the financial audit?
Yeah, sure. We'll recess and we'll get back to you after you're done.
I have nothing tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I do. Just one quick thing, because I was out on Saturday for the renaming of the Muddy Creek Bridge, the Joseph Blute, in honor of Joseph Blute, who the family is really generationally involved here. You got John and Tom. Tom served on the school committee here. I want to give a shout out to Rob Mador for the Bridges for the Fallen. He organized the thing. I also want to give a shout out to the fact that Link and Brian were involved. Mass DOT did not clean the bridge off, but it was spick and span. It would look like it had just been made. It was wonderful. And also both of our public safety departments. We had the fire truck with the massive flag. There were about 50 people there. It was quite something to see. And it also gave me an opportunity in a congenial way to talk to Mr. Dykens, who was there representing Chatham, because they indeed were involved in the purchase of Muddy Creek as property and the bridge itself. So it was a bridge metaphorically too. It was a good time, and it kind of reminds you what small town America is all like, because you don't see these things in other communities.
Right.
So wonderful to be there. Oh, I'll take a motion, and Pete said he wants to stay here and read that into the record.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been moved twice and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.